Alrighty, so this is your first Learn Together work. So you can think of a Learn Together as basically a coding challenge that is a bit more involved. And the idea here, and I want to be clear, the idea is for you to write code on your own, given my requirements. Okay. And this process of you writing code, you thinking of a concept and writing some code to meet the requirements is really important because it's helping you build that muscle of creating. And in this class, again, you'll have three opportunities to actually come up with a concept and code it. Now, this is not that dev work. This is getting you ready for that development work. Okay. So, given what we've just been through, right? So, at this point, you have finished the section 3. You've learned some great basic fundamental JavaScript skills. You've seen the temperature converter. You've learned the if else, the logical and ors, and variable scope. So, what I want you to do here, now that you've gotten that experience, is I want you to think of a daily decision, or I say a very often, right? So, and the reason I say this is that oftentimes it's things that we do on a daily basis that can be more meaningful and that we know more about. Okay. And I will show you my output. I won't show you my code. So just to let you know, and I'll say more about this, but in the reply, you won't be able to see replies from anybody else until you reply with your work. And the reason I do that is that I want you to attempt this on your own. And if I show you the way I approached it, I often see students using my approach. And not that I don't want you to learn from my approach, but I want you to do this code on your own. Okay? Hopefully you got that. So what do you need to do? So come up with, think about, and I actually gave mine quite a bit of thought, what I did for mine. Consider a decision you make often or daily and write code that represents your decision. Each of us needs to write different code, and you need to write your own code. Right? It's very common to go out to Stack Overflow and look at examples. That's not bad, but it's not what you want to do for this assignment. And what you'll do is complete your work in a directory called W2 in your public repo. Okay, so here are your requirements. It needs to have variables and demonstrate scope of variables, right? So you want some global and some local. I realize in writing this, my code, I still need to come up with some locals. You need to have string data and number data. You need to have booleans and comparisons. So your output needs to use the and or comparison. And I say here, one or the other. You can use both. That's fine as well. Else and if else, your output needs to include both if and if else. Your output does, as I previewed in the attendance, need to display on page. And then you're going to provide a Git hack link. I'm going to show you how to do this piece because think about this. It's really easiest for us to look at your content in a browser. It's just the easiest way. It's what we're all used to. So I'm going to start out on this first Learn Together by showing you how to do this because, and let me just be clear about this, is that this will only work once you have pushed your code to GitHub in the public repo. Okay, so just to be clear, and again, I'll demonstrate this. So your output needs to be meaningful. I want you to actually think about this. Okay, and I didn't put that in here, but in addition to your link, you do need to reply to 2 students. So you'll see that updated content here when you look at it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move over to my editor because I'm going to show you a little bit, but not all of my code. So there's my index. So here's my W2 directory, right? In the public, I'm going to roll this up. This is what I showed you in the attendance. Here's the W2 week 2. I ended up creating, and I recommend doing an index in an app. I ended up doing a daily, that just ran without the browser. just because I thought it was fun to do it that way. But I'm going to actually go ahead now that I have this, and I'm going to hit go live on my index file so that you can see my output. So what I focused on was the decision I make in the mornings about what kind of things can I do. Okay. So here's the output, right? Based on some global data, like the current time. And this is like, because in the morning, as I said, I think we get to attendance in the morning. I go to the gym, right? I meditate, I have coffee, um, I do some other things, like get a little sun if I can. So, what I did is I set up some variables that are in the global namespace. Now, we could talk about, and for those of you that have come from a programming experience already, you may go, global variables, we shouldn't use them. As we learn more about how to code, we learn more about why we can, or how we can eliminate or minimize the amount of global variables. But for this experience, it's okay to use them. But then I set like, here's some numeric data. So my current time is 7. My gym time is 8. Time before gym is 1. I'll talk to you more about this. I'll give you some examples, and it's really good to comment your code, and you'll see why in a minute. My turn to drive, because in this case, if I'm driving, it's going to take a little more time for me to go pick up my friend who I ride with. And this was the other one I thought of, an unplanned event, right? Something this unplanned happened. And then I just put, end of my global variable data. And so based on this content, then I wrote some if blocks, some comparison, if with comparisons, to determine that I, based on this data, could make and drink coffee, and I need to check the time. Okay, and you'll see why unplanned events happen, because right here I have something unplanned happened. Therefore, my logic hit that block in my code. So let me just show you what would happen if I come into my app.js. Now there's my display on page. I wrote just some notes on here. Yeah, one of my most common things I do is figure out what I can get done before I head to the gym for my workout. So here's that data that was showing. So in this case, if I said unplanned is false, right, then this is going to change immediately, right? So I didn't have an unplanned event. I had an hour from the current time, whatever time that was. I can make coffee, meditate, get some mornings done, get a green drink. Love getting up early. Have a great day. Okay, so this is my output. And I just wanted to show you, right? Thinking about it, actually trying to come up with a real world example is good. I use that show on page, right? That function. You can grab that out of my demo, out of the display, right? Use that. You'll need to use that here. Anytime you would have console.log, you would call the show on page. I did notice, and I kind of already knew this, I can pass a B to it to be bold, which was kind of fun. You don't have to do that, right? So then there is the logic at the bottom. Okay, so that's mine. I want you to spend a little time thinking about this. This is really seeing how well you are translating the concepts here. This does not have to be sophisticated. Please don't think this is just you taking what we're learning, what we've learned, what we've gone over, what you've had some experience with, and we're actually giving you an assignment to help you come up with a concept, right? And code that concept. Okay. So once you have this all working, you have all the pieces. Now the piece I didn't show you, yeah. So here was the div ID, right? The script tag here. Oh, by the way, I did figure out after last video that there is a way for me to convert my JS to default to single quotes, and it's in Prettier. This is an extension I use. I noticed right here, if I click into this, you don't have to, but you absolutely can. Single quotes is false, so I could just change that to true. So that was kind of fun after my comment. If you remember about that VS Code was defaulting my JS to be double quotes. Okay, so now it's back to here, right? So again, if you have any questions about this, right, post out on Discord. If you want to talk to me, right, I know I'm recording this before the start of the semester, but hopefully, reaching out, getting some help if you want clarification. But do know what will happen is when I hit reply to for me on this, I'm actually going to probably I'll post my output as well. But for this, I don't want you to see that except to the extent that you've seen my output, because I want you to actually give this a little time, marinating in your brain, thinking about it, coming up with a decision that's meaningful to you, and seeing how well you can create that output as close to that decision. Because for me, there are things that move into this decision, and this absolutely represents, well, very close to represents what happens, right? I love getting up early. If I get up, current time is 7, right? And gym's at 8. I am driving, so I lose a little time there, but I have enough time to do all these things. And all this is based on is an if, and then in this case, I believe I used an or, if, and then an or comparison. Okay. The rest of it I'll go over and I think in the video for this assignment. So now let me show you the last piece of this, and I'll show you this, and I've given you a link here to this Git hack, and you'll see in a minute why I like you to use this. So I've given you the link to Git hack. So once you have some code, you have it working locally, and you're ready to actually submit this assignment. And by the way, in your reply, talk a little about your experience of doing this, right? Once you push your code to GitHub, and I'm actually going to go ahead and go to GitHub because I'm going to go 93 into my public repo, into demo, and to display to use that as the example. Just back up. I must have done something wrong here. There we go. Demo, display. Oh, there we go. Index, right? So when I click on the index file, I grab that URL, copy it. I come over to Git hack. I paste it here. What it's going to give me is a link to provide me a link that will render to a web page. And this is a great way of sharing code, sharing your output. I think most of the time I was using for deployment, but I don't think it really matters. So I'm going to copy this, right? And then again, this will be for your output, but I want to just give you the example, right? So what will happen here, and I'm going to show you this two ways. First, if you just paste that, what will happen on most browsers when you hit enter, it creates that link for you already. But if it doesn't, you can always select that and then do link and then paste in that URL. So what that URL represents, and let me just see, I believe it should work fine. Let's go to a browser and see it. Yeah, that's the hello world. If I right click, I hit inspect, I can see the sources, which by the way, there's my app.js, right? There's the index file with all those pieces. So what this allows us to do is once you've pushed your code out to your GitHub public repo, okay, you're ready to share it with the world. Then you go to the link, you paste it in, you grab this link because it's basically just converting your GitHub link into a rendered link, so it renders the index.html, and it's a great way to share. Okay, then that's the link you will provide here. Okay. Okay, I hope this helps you. I'm actually going to end up I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to show you. I will update this with make sure you reply to 2 students, and I will do my post with mine. And I think I might do a little video just going over how I approached it. But again, I want you to do this without looking at anybody's code. You definitely can review what you've already been through with the Udemy course for helping you kind of get organized, right? But the idea here is come up with a decision that you make on a daily basis and code that to meet my requirements. Okay. Do it in the browser, use that function. So again, I hope this is fun for you to take on in the second week of this class. All right. Have a good one. See you later.